If you think hitting $2 million means that your money worries are finally over, think again. Because for most retirees, that milestone doesn't mark the finish line. It marks the start of a new set of challenges. So you did it. You hit your retirement number. You saved $2 million for retirement. You planned carefully, invested very wisely, and did everything right on paper over the years. Even everyone around you says that you're set for. But something unexpected happens when you get to this point. You don't feel free. You still hesitate before booking the trip, helping family, or finally making home improvements. And here's the paradox. Many retirees who reach this point actually end retirement with significantly larger portfolios than what they started with. And not because they crushed the market year over year or found the best trading strategy, but because they were too afraid to spend. Essentially, they were wealthier on paper at the end of their plan, but much poorer in experience. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button right now. It's actually shocking that over 95% of viewers don't subscribe. Subscribing costs you nothing, but helps us keep bringing you content that can change your financial life forever. And after years of working with high-net-worth families in retirement, I've learned this lesson. Fear doesn't disappear once you hit your number. It just changes shape. So in today's video, we're breaking down why everything changes once you cross that 2 million threshold, and what the data shows about retirees who spend confidently versus those who hold back. Because even at this level, we see the same 4 traps over and over again, especially among families with $2 million or more saved for retirement. And understanding these traps and ultimately solving for them could be the difference between drifting through retirement somewhat on autopilot and actually living it with confidence. So crossing $2 million puts you into a surprisingly small group. So according to the Life Insurance Marketing and Research Association, only about 4% of U.S. households ever reach $2 million in investable assets. And among households led by someone over 60, it's just 7%. So when you reach this level, you're not just financially comfortable, you're operating in an entirely different financial universe. Yet most people in this group still rely on cookie-cutter strategies, target date funds, set it and forget it portfolios, and even generic withdrawal rules. And these are all designed for folks with a fraction of their assets. That approach may work fine for someone with, let's say, $500,000 saved at 45, but at $2 million, those same default choices can quietly cost you hundreds of thousands in unnecessary taxes, inefficient withdrawals, and missed opportunities. At this stage, you're not playing by the same rules anymore. You need an integrated plan, one that brings together investments, taxes, and legacy goals. By doing this, financial independence actually becomes financial freedom. To start, let's dive deeper into the $2 million paradox that we do see time and time again. So on paper, retiring with $2 million should feel like ultimate freedom. But for many, it turns into a cage of caution. The hardest shift in retirement isn't just financial, it's more so psychological. You've spent decades practicing delayed gratification. You learn to save diligently, to understand opportunity cost, and to avoid risk or even embrace it when appropriate. And now, even with the freedom to spend, it just feels wrong, almost like you're betraying every quality that got you to this point. That mindset served you well for decades building wealth, but in retirement it starts working against you. Now add in fears about market drops, inflation, or simply just outliving your savings, and it's no wonder that so many retirees underspend. Researchers call this the consumption gap. It's the difference between what your portfolio could safely support and what you actually spend, and that gap represents more than just dollars. It's lost memories, it's postponed experiences, and ultimately missed purpose. Now let's dive into the data that changes everything about retirement. So Michael Kitces ran one of the most comprehensive analyses ever done on retirement spending. He looked at more than 150 years of U.S. market history, so every 30-year period since the 1870s, using a balanced 60-40 portfolio, something I would consider to be fairly conservative. What he wanted to know was what really happens when a retiree withdraws a fixed amount, inflation-adjusted, every year. Here's what he discovered. Even with multiple market downturns, retirees who withdrew about 4% per year practically never ran out of money. In fact, most finish retirement with more than double, and oftentimes up to 5 times, their starting wealth. Yes, 5 times their starting wealth. To make it even more clear, let's put numbers to that. Let's say that you retired with $1 million at age 60 and withdrew 4%. That's $40,000 in year 1. In most historical periods, you'd still end up with well over $2 million after 30 years, even with inflation. Now imagine starting with $2 million. You could withdraw roughly $80,000 a year, adjust it for inflation, and still have millions left by age 90. Kitces also modeled 2 specific scenarios. In the first, a couple retires with $1 million, plans for 30 years, has 3% inflation, and has an 8% average return. They could safely spend $61,000 a year and not touch principal for 17 years. And let's go even more conservative. Even with lower returns, say 7% growth and 4% inflation, they could still spend about $50,000 a year and not touch principal for 18 years. That's incredible. That's nearly 2 decades where your investments fund your retirement lifestyle and your principal stays intact. So why do most retirees still underspend? Is using the 4% rule too conservative? It's because emotionally, it feels safer in retirement to hold back, even when the math says otherwise. And that's what leads us to what I call the silent tragedy of retirement. It's reaching the end of your life with 2, 3, maybe even 5 times your starting wealth, and then realizing you never gave yourself permission to enjoy your money. Before we get into the 4 traps, if you're near that 2 million mark and you want clarity on exactly how much you can spend without fear of running out, my team built what we call our profit process. It's designed to show you how to spend confidently, keep lifetime taxes very low, and make your money work for you, not against you. You can use the link in the description to schedule a free discovery call with our team, and we'll show you how to do just that. Now let's talk about the biggest traps that quietly erode wealth and steal joy from retirement. So trap number 1, complexity creep. Once you cross $2 million, you become a magnet for exclusive investments. Private credit, structured notes, boutique real estate deals, all promising diversification and higher returns. But most of these are high-fee, low-liquidity products that rarely outperform the simple, transparent portfolios that got you here. They rely on leverage, long lockups, and glossy marketing rather than consistent results. Our wealth management team gets pitched these kinds of investments from wholesalers all the time, and quite frankly, they rarely make sense, even for our ultra-high net worth families with over $30 million, let alone those that have $2 million. So before saying yes to anything new just because it sounds appealing, ask yourself, what does it really cost? Can I get my money out when I need it? Or if not, what are the redemption periods? And does it actually fit my broader plan? Complex and esoteric often gets mistaken for intelligence, but over time, discipline and evidence-based simplicity outperform complexity. Now, trap number 2, RMDs, IRMA, and the new tax law reality. Most $2 million portfolios are heavy with pre-tax assets, IRAs, 401ks, and even pensions. Under current rules, required minimum distributions begin around age 73 to 75, depending on your birth year. Those forced withdrawals create taxable income, whether you need the cash or not. And that added income can also trigger IRMA surcharges. Those are higher Medicare premiums based on a 2-year look-back. Now here's what's different today and why it really matters long-term. The big, beautiful tax bill locked in historically low tax rates, for now. That's great, but it doesn't address the national debt. It only added to it. And with record debt climbing, those rates are unlikely to last long-term. Taxes could easily rise within the next 5 to 10 years under a new administration. And what that means is that you may have a limited window to take advantage of today's historically low brackets. So what can you do? Well, you can start by planning Roth conversions intentionally, potentially filling up your target bracket each year while rates are still low. Think of it like smoothing out your income now to avoid IRMA spikes and higher taxes later on in retirement. And finally, you want to align your asset location. You want to keep income-heavy holdings in tax-deferred buckets, growth-oriented assets in your Roth because they're tax-free, and maintain flexibility with liquidity in your taxable brokerage accounts. I'm a big chess player, so I like to say, let's play chess with your taxes, not checkers. Because this isn't about saving a few bucks just this year or just a little bit each year. It's about positioning your wealth to minimize lifetime taxes and maximize flexibility for decades to come. Now, trap number 3 is around sequence of returns risk. When you're saving for retirement, let's say in your 30s or 40s, a market correction can kind of feel like a sale. But in retirement, that same dip can feel like a gut punch. A 20% decline on, let's say, $500,000 is $100,000. Not nothing, but manageable. But a 20% decline on $2 million is $400,000. And if that happens early in retirement, recovery can take years. And that's where sequence of returns risk really comes into play. Let's put numbers behind this. Let's say that you start with $2 million and you withdraw 4% per year, so $80,000 annually. Both portfolios average the same 8% return over 30 years, but the order of returns is reversed. So scenario A, bad years first. Let's say you have a 10% decline, 5% decline, and 8% decline the first 3 years, then 8% average annual returns for the remaining years of retirement. Now in scenario B, the good years are first. So 8% steady growth for most of retirement, then negative 10%, 5%, and 8% at the end of your retirement. Both scenarios had the same average return, but just different timing. After 30 years, Scenario A ends with about $2.9 million. Scenario B, though, ends with nearly $5.9 million. That's a $3 million difference with the same returns, simply because one investor's losses came early instead of late. That's the true danger of sequence of returns risk. It's not how much the market returns, it's when those returns happen. The fix is to build guardrails, and what I call the 3-bucket system. Bucket 1 is 2 to 3 years of expenses in cash or short-term bonds. Now, Bucket 2 is where you have income-producing investments for the next 5 to 7 years. And then Bucket 3 is to have long-term growth assets for compounding. And those buckets shouldn't just be divided by time, they should be coordinated by tax treatment as well. What I mean by that is, your Roth IRA should be geared for more long-term, so growth, because of that tax-free component. And then finally, your taxable account, which should be designed for flexibility so that you can have access for, let's say, large purchases or distributions with capital gains control. Bringing it all together, these buckets form your guardrails, a framework that gives you spending confidence in retirement. So if markets rise and your portfolio crosses your upper guardrail, you give yourself a raise. And if the market declines and ultimately your portfolio and you hit that lower guardrail, well, you pause inflation adjustments or you trim discretionary spending. So as an example, let's say you have that $2 million portfolio and it grows by 13%. You can increase spending accordingly, but if we enter a bear market, that's okay. That's part of the plan. Now at that point, you simply reel back spending temporarily. So even with a 22% decline in this scenario, spending only decreases by about 5%, which is still very manageable during turbulent markets. And this approach is flexible, it's data-driven, and it eliminates guesswork. So when markets move, you already know what to do. And that's what replaces anxiety with confidence. Now, trap number 4 is wealth without purpose, which in my opinion is one of the most important concepts. By this point, with $2 million saved, your portfolio will likely outlive you. But without intentional planning, that wealth can vanish within a generation or two. And the statistics are sobering. So roughly 70% of family wealth disappears by the second generation and about 90% by the third. So if you're the person that created wealth and you didn't inherit much money, typically on average by the third generation, 90% of the time wealth is completely gone. So buy your grandkids. And that's not because of bad markets. It's because families rarely talk about money until it's a little too late. So you want to start by defining your purpose and involving your family as early on as possible. Who is this money really for? And what kind of impact do you want to have with your wealth? We suggest holding family meetings with your kids and maybe even grandkids, not to just share the numbers, but also to share your values around your wealth. Basically, have a deep conversation with them and explain the why behind your plan, what sacrifices went into building your plan and ultimately your wealth, and also what principles you would want them to carry forward. These conversations prevent the misunderstandings that ultimately destroy wealth faster than any market correction. Now, from there, you build structure around your intent. Now, one example with that approach is to set up a donor-advised fund. So making generosity a consistent part of your family's culture, and that legacy gifting can continue long after you've passed. And if your ambitions grow and reach even further, you can consider a private foundation. Ultimately, you want to work with your estate planning team to design the right kinds of trusts, right types of charitable accounts that ensure that your wishes are carried out with clarity and not confusion. Because legacy planning isn't about control. It's about continuity. It's how you pass down your values alongside your wealth. Because wealth without purpose fades pretty fast. But wealth with intention lasts for generations. So a $2 million portfolio, when it's structured the right way, can sustainably support about $80,000 per year. And that's well before Social Security or pension income is factored in. With smart tax coordination and guardrails in place, many retirees can comfortably spend $100,000 to $120,000 a year, and sometimes even more during early years of retirement with the right plan. But the point I'm trying to get across is that this isn't just about math. It's also about meaning. You didn't spend decades building wealth just to stare at your balance sheet. You built it to live with purpose. So really ask yourself, if you finally gave yourself permission to spend more, what would that look like? Would you take that big trip with your kids and your grandkids? Would you remodel the home that you love so much? Or maybe even fund your grandchild's education, which is a gift that can be an opportunity that ultimately keeps giving. Now, the numbers say that you can't. The only question is, will you? Most people spend retirement searching for the perfect portfolio. But peace of mind doesn't come from a product. It comes from a process that tells you when to adjust, how much to spend, and ultimately why your plan still works even when the market doesn't. When times are good, you want to enjoy your portfolio. But when times are tough, just trust your plan. Because true confidence doesn't come from your account balance. It comes from knowing your system works. So the consumption gap is real, but it's fixable, and research proves it. Retirees who follow a flexible, data-driven plan end up wealthier, happier, and with far less anxiety. And if you want to stress test your income, reduce taxes while rates are still low, and design a plan that turns savings into real freedom, you can use the link in the description to schedule a free discovery call with our team to learn about our profit process. So, point being, you've done the hard part. You've saved for retirement. Now it's finally time to enjoy it. Because real success in retirement isn't about how much you keep. It's about how well you live once you've earned it. Thanks so much for watching, and if you found this video helpful, feel free to like and subscribe to see more content like this in the future.